Okay, sure.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we had a last-minute switch, and I am so eternally grateful to our next guest for being willing to put together a whole show for us in under 24 hours. We're going to be learning about something that is new to me, but not new to the web. We're going to be talking about Ember.js. But before we talk about that, let me first bring to the stage our guest for today, Robbie Wagner. Robbie, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I cannot express how grateful I am that you were willing to show up on 24 hours notice to this show. And not only that, but to show up to teach me something. So before we talk about what we're gonna teach today, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, all those good things?
I'm Robbie Wagner. I am Robbie the Wagner everywhere online because Robbie Wagner was taken everywhere. And it was a whole thing with Chuck and I discussed. So I was going to be the Robbie Wagner. And we were like, oh, Robbie the Wagner is like Robert the Bruce vibes. Like, that would be cool. So we went with that. I've been doing web dev since 2012 with like probably 80 or more % of that being Ember. So I've been using Ember for a long time. I'm on the Ember Learning core team, so I do some like docs stuff. I mostly do Ember Inspector maintenance these days, and I am a front-end engineer at Amazon right now.
Very, very cool. Well, so I've been on your show before, so it only feels right that you end up on mine. So let's talk a little bit about Ember, because I think for some of us, and I am some of us, Ember was something that I heard about a lot a long time ago. And then it sort of disappeared from my radar. And I, being the myopic, the solipsistic creature that I am, just assumed because I couldn't see it that it didn't exist. I thought that Ember had kind of dropped off, gone the way of the Moo tools, you know? Which I realize is very unfair as I'm saying that out loud. So tell me a little bit about, like, you've been working with Ember. What's the story of Ember? Like,
Yeah, I think you're definitely not in the minority in thinking that it's dead. Everyone's been saying it's dead forever. But it's kind of, the vibes with Ember are like they do stability without stagnation, convention over configuration, all these buzzwords that are like, Railsy, like, very opinionated. Like, the whole idea is that if you go into any Ember code base, it's going to be pretty similar to any other Ember code base you've been in. So it's not like a React code base where you go in and you're like, oh, where is everything? I don't know. What meta framework we're using? I don't know. Like, it's just like, let's just get in and get work done. And they've kind of always been doing that. And they've always been very like supportive of old versions. Like, at work, we use 328, which is like at least 5 years old, I think, which is unfortunate. But so we've been like, the fact that most of the new add-ons and things still work with that is like you don't get that in any other framework. Angular puts out a new major version and they're like, everything's dead. Upgrade everything right now or you can't use it. So like that, I think that's hindered Ember a lot actually, because they do support everything so much. So it's like people are like, this is not as new and shiny. It's like you're supporting all this old stuff. It's very crufty. Like, I think that's hurt it some.
okay, so this is excellent. But we skipped, I think, the core statement, which is, what is Ember.js?
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm a little rambly.
No worries at all. I realized I didn't even ask. I also made assumptions here.
Ember is a JavaScript framework. They call it the framework for ambitious developers, or at least they used to. I haven't read the new homepage too much, honestly. But it's like a all batteries included type of thing. So think of a like Next.js with even more included, really, because it has testing built in. Like it hooks into QUnit, and you can do tests that render kind of like a Cypress style. You can do, it has Ember data is like a package that's included by default. So you can hook up to your API and just kind of like have a model and call like save on it. You don't have to worry about like, oh, what fetch call am I doing? Where am I sending it to? It's like conventions for like managing your data, caching everything, all of that. It has a router, so you don't have to be like, oh, let me install React Router or anything like that. Like,
Okay.
yeah, it's just kind of like everything you would need to build a very robust application. So like I wouldn't use it for like a marketing site, like something static. I would use Astro or something lightweight. If you have a big, heavy, businessy application, I think Ember's a good thing to look at.
Got it. So this, the way you're describing it sounds very much like the way I've heard people describe Rails. It sounds very much the way that I'm hearing developers describe Laravel. So it's a sort of batteries included, anything you need. You don't have to go hunting for like what the community opinion is, because the opinion is baked in.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. And so there are trade-offs with that, obviously. Like, I think the same trade-offs that get discussed with something like Rails is, you do it the community's way, or you do it the project's way, I should say. It's a community project, but you don't have like this vast variance in ways that you can manage state, or ways that you can do routing, or ways that you can do whatever. You do it the way that the project says you do it.
Yep.
And one of the benefits that you mentioned early was that you have things like, routing is built in, and convention over configuration, which that one to me is huge, because there is, I think, a challenge when you walk into a lot of modern JavaScript projects where it doesn't matter if you know the language. Like if you know React, if you walk into a React project, even one that's fairly structured, like a Next project, everyone is different. They're all kind of unique snowflakes, where you really do have to do bespoke onboarding to every project when you work in React. Whereas when you use something like Rails or Laravel or Angular or apparently Ember, you just open it up and everything's in the same place, and things you can kind of navigate any project the way you would navigate any other project, because that's how it works. Like that's the way it's structured. So you are using Ember, and then are you using Ember in your day job at Amazon right now?
Yep.
Got it. Okay. And what are you allowed to talk about this? What part of the project do you work on?
Yeah, I can talk about it. I can't go into like code specifics, but yeah, I work for Art19. It's a podcast hosting platform that was acquired by Amazon a couple of years back. I wasn't there when it was acquired, but I was hired after that.
Got it. And so this is, like you said earlier, a fairly businessy, like bigger application. And so a podcasting platform or a hosting platform, you're dealing with, like, I assume, multi-tenant organizations. You're dealing with dashboards. You're dealing with uploads. You're dealing with like billing and analytics and what other kinds of use cases are you handling inside of the app?
Yeah, analytics is a big one. I'm in like a project that's probably going to take over a year to redo all of our analytics, make them nice and flashy. We have like ad insertion is a big thing for podcasts, like dynamically figuring out where those should go, swapping the ads in and out, letting people see their like, what do you call it? Is waveform the word? The like what the audio looks like, and find like the spot you want to put the ads in, stuff like that.
You do that inside Ember? Mm-hmm. Fascinating. I would have expected that would be some kind of like back end process.
No, I mean you figure all that out, and then like once you know the timestamp, you pass that to the back end, and then the back end will swap out those like at that timestamp.
That's super cool. Okay, all right, very cool. All right, so I have a couple questions from the chat. One is, does Ember have server-side rendering?
Yes and no. It's a little bit of a loaded question. There's a thing called Fastboot, which runs is server-side rendering for Ember. I don't know how supported it is on like the most modern Ember stuff. And then there's a thing on top of that uses Fastboot called Prember, which will pre-render everything if you want to have like a fully static site instead of server-side rendering. Now, like, I don't know all the stuff about this, and there are smarter people than me that have talked on other podcasts and things about Ember and know more about this. Like Chris Manson was on JS Party recently and talked about it. Anyway, the new build system is called Embroider. It's going to be just a Vite plugin one day, and then you're going to like Vite will handle all of your like how it gets built, what targets it gets built for, all that kind of stuff. Like So one day we'll be able to do hopefully everything everyone else is doing the easy way. But for now, there's like extra add-ons and potential hiccups if you try to do that.
Got it. Very, very cool. Yeah, and like people are kind of saying like Fada is apparently very familiar with Ember. Fanner was in the same group as me that didn't realize that Ember was still like in heavy production here. Jimmy Code, hello. I can but not here. Go to the Learn with Jason Discord, and there's a spot to post projects that we can all review. What's up, y'all? We got folks dropping in. What's happening? So let's talk a little bit about what you want to cover today, because I gave you exactly 0 notice to plan for this.
Yeah.
So if I, for a sort of hello world, or I guess an introduction to Ember.js, what is a good application to tackle in that scenario?
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a great, the thing that I think would be interesting would be using some sort of actual backend so we could play with some Ember data stuff potentially, but maybe that's too much for today. I don't know. But the Super Rentals tutorial on the website is actually pretty decent. So it'll take you through like using Ember CLI to spin up an app and, building your first routes and your components. And so kind of following along with that, and then we could diverge from that if we want, kind of how we feel.
Yeah. Why don't we do that? So let me flip us over into our pair programming mode here. And before I get too far into this, I'm first going to say that this show, like every show, is being live captioned. We have Amanda here from White Coat Captioning making all that happen. The link to view the live captions is down in the scrolling banner at the bottom of the screen here. That is made possible through our sponsor, Netlify, who is kicking in to cover the cost of that live transcription. So thank you very much, Netlify. Make sure you go check them out. Tell them I sent you. Also, we are doing something new for right now. We just kicked it off last week. Tuple is sponsoring the pair programming part of this show. And the way they're doing that is by giving us access to Tuple, which is a tool specifically for pair programming. And so I actually have Robbie on a Tuple call with me, and he can do things like draw on the screen, on my screen. Watch this. Isn't that neat? So now we, and there's a whole lot more that he can do. He can do things like send, he can take over my screen and copy paste code. So it's got like a shared copy buffer, which is really cool. He can also, he can copy paste code. He can actually take over and edit. If I get lost in here, he'll be able to send through docs and links and stuff like that, which saves some pain that we were having before, because in previous episodes of the show, you might remember, I have had to have people create a private gist that they can then DM me that I have to go open and copy from, or they have to send me something in our private chat and I have to copy paste that out. They send me a link somewhere and I have to like open it and then copy paste it back over to chat. So this is it's a nice little workflow optimization, and if we weren't already on a call like this, we can also do voice and video while we work together. So it's a cool tool. You should check it out. Thank you, Tuple, for doing that for us. We're talking to Robbie today. Robbie is on Twitter as Robbie the Wagner. Let me drop that into the comments here. And let's also drop a link for Ember right into these comments. A framework for ambitious web developers. So it still does say the same thing that you said before. If he can access your screen, he can hack. Yeah. So this is the thing about Tuple. Tuple is meant for pair programming, right? So it is you don't get on this with a stranger. You get on this with people that you trust, right? That's the goal here. But yes, and there was a question. So TypeScript generics with Matt Pocock is still happening. Matt had something come up last minute. Robbie was kind enough to jump in. So check the schedule. Matt is still coming on the show. It's going to be, I think, in about a month. Let's see. Jimmy Code, questions like these are on Tuesdays. I do a solo show where I'm happy to answer these kind of questions, but today we're going to be focused on Ember. You know what? I trust you too, Lakesh Art. Thank you. Are Tom Dale and Yehuda Katz still involved with Ember?
Yehuda is. Tom is, I don't know, resting on his pile of money somewhere, I think. Yeah. I think he still works for LinkedIn. I'm not sure. I haven't heard much from him in a while.
Yeah, I was actually, you know what? That's true. I haven't seen much from Tom Dale either. But okay, why don't we go ahead and get started here? Let's jump in. What should I do first if I want to build a project?
Yeah. So I think the tutorial, if you click read the tutorial here, is kind of a good starting point. You know, whether you want to go through the entire tutorial or whether you're just kind of wanting to learn how to get started. So if you scroll down a bit, I think, is it on this page? This page is like, you know, here's the stuff you're going to build, whatever. But we might be on the next page when it actually has the like first command we need to run.
Orientation.
Yeah, so we got to install Ember CLI. Okay. Everything is through Ember CLI. All right.
And I just realized I got a couple things open on my screen that I'm going to hide real quick. Just because I don't think that any of it's sensitive, but it's also cluttery and I want it gone. Let's see here. Get this out of here. Get this out of here. Let me bring this back, and then we're going to open up a new terminal, and I need to... Let's get this over here and this over here. And so I need to npm install global Ember CLI.
Mm-hmm. And then while that's installing, just kind of a note to this next command here. Like if you're building an app, you do Ember new. If you're doing an add-on, you do Ember add-on. And that's one of the big powerful things about Ember is the add-on community. So there's like, you know, add-ons for everything you would want to do, like authentication. There's Ember Simple Auth. Pretty much every Ember app uses it. Like, you don't have to figure all that out every time.
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to do Ember new, and I should just run like exactly as it says, super rentals.
I'm going to have some notes to add to that. Are you a PNPM user or no?
I'm not.
Okay, so then we'll skip that, but let's do... -- TypeScript and -- embroider.
And what does embroider do?
Embroider is the new build system.
Okay.
So embroider is like the glue that hooks into, right now it's mostly Webpack based. It will be Vite based soon, and then it will go away entirely and be like a Vite plugin. So they're working on that.
Nice.
But embroider is
screen share is not active. I'm just out here doing stuff with sorry everybody. Okay, so I have let me go back up through what I did. I installed the Ember CLI, which is up here somewhere. There it is. npm install. I installed it globally. And then down here I checked the version. So we have Ember CLI 5.1 by 5.10.0. I'm using node 22. And then I moved into my GitHub folder here, and then we ran this new command, Ember new super rentals -- lang en, and then we turned on TypeScript and we turned on embroider, the new build system. And it has been creating an app. Let's see where we're at. It's all done. So we can get into super rentals here, and then I'm going to actually, I think I can just open this. And that's going to be in the GitHub folder somewhere. Okay. And let's see, we'll close that. We'll open this. And it said, then what?
Yeah, if you want to spin this up just to see what it's got so far, you can do, well, they say npm start, but yeah, that'll work. That just is pointing to EmberServe. I was going to say run EmberServe, but same thing.
Ah, right, yeah. Okay.
So yeah, this will open on localhost 4200. And if you go to that, it'll probably have like a welcome to Ember.js. Or yeah.
Hey! I also like I like it when a project has a good mascot. and I feel
Yeah.
like the Ember mascot is very fun.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is actually an add-on, I think, the Ember welcome page. So I don't know what the tutorial is going to tell you to do, but the first thing I always do is remove that welcome page because I want to build real things. And so you can like just remove the invocation of that component and the like thing from your package JSON if you want. But we can also just follow I don't know. Do you want to follow the tutorial or do you want me to just kind of peck around at stuff?
I'll tell you what. I have no opinion here. So if we wanna play it safe with the tutorial, we can do that. If you wanna just show me some things, we can also do that. There's no rules. There's no rules on local JSON.
All right. Well, let's just go through some stuff to start, and then we'll maybe come back to the tutorial after we talk about a little bit of what's going on in here. So yeah, if you open your package JSON, I think in there should be something with welcome in the name.
Let's see, we got...
Oh, lots of types. Okay.
Yeah, here's all of our types. We've got the Ember CLI stuff. We got the welcome page.
Yeah. So you can get rid of that.
Okay.
And then
you said somewhere out here there's going to be a call to that.
Yeah, everything's in the app folder in templates, application, HBS. You'll want to remove that welcome page there.
And so if I do something like that, I come back out here. Now we're controlling the page.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, for routes, there's a router TS down here. This is where we define all the routes. I'm just going to like brief intro of all the kind of structure first, and then we'll go from there. So yeah, so you put your routes in here. There's a routes folder where you would put your JavaScript or TypeScript, I guess, in this case, your backend classes. Everything is class-based in Ember. And then you've got components are kind of your main building block, and controllers are like, I don't know. I feel like maybe this is kind of a weird setup for people that are used to like a React or Next.js kind of thing, where like a route has both a route file and a controller, and the controller is kind of more like a component, and the route one is more like for logic as the route is booting up. So like, you could have a model hook. That's kind of one of the big things in Ember, which I guess we could do that just to show how that works real quick. If you want to make a new route file, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry. Totally prepared here. You can go into your console or not console, terminal, and say Ember.g route, and then give it route singular. And whatever we want to call it, like we could just do hello world or something.
Okay. Any flags or anything?
Nope. And so that will generate
G is short for generate, right?
Yes. Yep. So you could type out the whole word. And so you'll get your route file, your template for that route. It adds it to the router, and you get a test for it, which is nice. So you have all the things you would need, and then you can fill them in. So in this route file, like one of the big concepts, like in the Hello World TS that it made under the routes folder.
Sorry, I was just looking at all these like.
Oh yeah,
so
sure.
Here's our Hello World under the routes folder.
Mm-hmm. So you can add a new method inside that called model.
New method inside here called model.
Mm-hmm. And you can return whatever you want here.
I forget how this works. Is this right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you could return like a string or an object or, whatever kind of data you want to come through onto your route.
Okay, so let's do something like this, right? We can do kind of a basic thing.
Yep, and then you can go over to templates hello world. And so an outlet there, that is all of the content from the parent. So like if you had a nested route and you wanted to have like a header that was the same, or like some things that were the same with your root route, and then you wanted to change like the content further down, you would use an outlet to like throw that content in there. We're not going to need that for this test here. So instead of outlet, we can keep the double curly brackets and say this dot model dot greeting.
Okay.
And then you should see it rendering that now.
Yeah, start it back up. And so if I come out here and it's whatever I named the route is what we hit.
Yep.
And look at that. And something interesting happened here because it pulled our application template in as well.
Your application template is like, you know, in Astro, you would have a layout or something for your common app Chrome. That's what you want to put in your application and wrap that around your outlet.
Got it. And so the outlet is, I think, like outlet is the term that I've seen used in, I think like Remix adopted it. I've seen it used in a few other programming languages. In HTML, things that are leaning on like HTML as the language of truth, like Astro, they use slot.
Right.
So if you've seen a slot before, outlets and slots, I think Vue and Svelte use slots as well. This is like the equivalent, right?
Yep. Yeah, more or less. Yeah, and so then like the difference, the one caveat there is there's also a yield, which is like the same as an outlet, but it's for components. So like if you have a component and you want to pass in extra stuff that gets rendered when you render that component, like we can do an example here to show you. So you might want to make a new tab in your terminal so we don't have to keep starting and stopping your server.
Gotcha. Let me do that.
And we'll see if sometimes it gets a little upset if you generate stuff and like haven't restarted the server. We'll see how well this works. So let's do Ember.js component. Let's see what we want to do in a component. I don't know. I'm totally unprepared with ideas of things to build. Do you have any component
I feel
ideas?
like the standard for a meta framework is to build out a counter.
Okay, we can build a counter.
So let's build a counter. Do I need to do anything other than this?
I don't think so.
Okay. I don't know if you said this, but I wasn't listening. And so I do like that it gets I guessed, right? That because it was G route to make a route, and then we've got components, it was like G component to make a component. So that I really like. Like it starts to feel kind of immediate, like, all right, I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
So now I've got my counter.
It looks like it didn't make a backing class for it. So you have the handlebars, but you don't have a TypeScript. I'm guessing maybe the default is template only. So I guess we maybe do need, I don't typically use the generators, but I think the generators are nice and cool. So I was like trying to lean on those. If you go back and try Ember.js component -- help, I think it'll give you all the things you could pass to it.
Okay, let's maximize this so we can actually see what's going on. We have dry run, verbose, pod, classic, dummy.
None of
repo.
that. It was towards the bottom.
Here's the components.
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
We had the path.
So I think you want
component class.
-gc. It says -gc is component class Glimmer component. So that's what we want, I think.
Oh, cool. Okay. Is there a way to like undo what we did, or if I just make a new one with the same?
I'm not sure actually. Let's try just Ember -- help. Maybe there is a destroy. Is there a destroy? I haven't used it in a while.
Let's see.
Or maybe this is too much. We could just kind of blindly try Ember.d -- help and see if like Ember.d is a thing.
Dang, there's so much.
Oh, Ember destroy. There
Ember
you go.
destroy. Here we go. All right. So Ember destroy, and I just do component. Okay, let's do
Yeah.
it. Oh wait, what am I doing? Why did I close that? I want to be back down here. We're going to go Ember destroy component counter.
Yeah, there we go.
And it's gone. See, it's removed. And then we wanted to try again, but this time we're going to do -gc.
Yep.
Okay. And this time we get counter, we get the counter test, all right? And then when I look in here, there's the backing class, and there's the template. Okay, cool, all right.
Yeah, so that kind of worked. Just a little bit of backstory into like this whole format. The new thing, which I didn't want us to get into today because it's like kind of experimental still, there are single file components. So it'd be like .gts, and you would have all of your template and backing class in one. So there's a little bit of weirdness until that drops with this, like, do you want to generate both files or not? Like, in my opinion, this should be the default. And if you don't want the backing class, you should just delete it. But anyway, so yeah, so in here, we've got this interface, which is your signature. The element is not necessarily the root element. It's whatever element you want to apply ... attributes to. And ... well, we call that splattributes is how you say it. Yeah. So you put that in your template, and you can, any attribute you pass down, like if you're invoking this component and you want to give it a class or an ID or any HTML attribute, it will get passed down to that element that you've put this on. So this defaults to null in case you don't have any elements or whatever. But if we want to go into our counter HBS, we could give it, we could do just like a div and give it ... attributes.
And with the, sorry, where do I put that?
Anywhere. I'm unsure if we're going to need the yield. I know we were talking about playing with them, but like if the counter, I assume when we're doing a counter, we're wanting it to just have like a plus and minus and increment a number, right?
We could go even simpler than that, and we could just have a button that when you click it, a number goes up. I don't think we need full controls.
Okay. So yeah, so then for this, I would do, just a div. And
now, is the attributes in the div? Like as
yeah,
okay.
so you don't need the curly brackets.
That was what I thought, and then I was confused. And then I could do like a button. Oh, I don't need the curlies. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we can do like a count, and we want to make this live. But for now, I'll be happy to just get something up on the screen. Should we wait to talk about this, or?
Yeah, I would just get rid of the yield for now. We can come back to it potentially, but let's stick on the counter train and finish that up.
Okay.
So now that we've got ... attributes, if you go back to the counter TS file, you'll have to change that element to be like HTML div element so that it knows what the type of the element is.
Got it. And this is TypeScript, right? Like, just so anybody who's maybe confused, this is TypeScript. This isn't like an Ember thing where we're using the HTML div element type and just making sure that the component here knows like how to autocomplete, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the main thing that this is good for is the args here. So you can give it all the types of the args that you're expected to pass in, and then like you won't know right now because we didn't do this as part of the like basic installation, but there's a thing called glint, which does types for the templates. So then you can install that extension in VS Code. I won't make you do all that. I'm just going to just mention it. But then you hover it in your template and you can see like, oh, the type of this arg was a string or the specific union of strings or whatever.
Got it.
So it's super useful to know that everything is what you expect.
Super cool. Okay, so then when we get in here, I'm going to make an assumption that somewhere in here is where we're going to add our counter or like our current count.
Yep. And so in Ember, it's kind of like a signals-y implementation. So it's like stuff isn't auto-tracked unless you tell it to be tracked. So like nothing will update unless you've told it it should. So kind of the opposite of like a React hooks world, more like a solid JS or I don't know, signals in general, if you've used signals anywhere. So the specific thing that Ember uses is called tracked. And so you have to import at tracked or import tracked, and then you use it as a decorator with at tracked.
Where's that? No, I can't. Okay, where do I import it from?
It's from at glimmer/tracking. And there's a few extensions for VS Code where you can like type E:, and then it'll like give you a bunch of different Ember things, like, you know, ways to find all this stuff. TypeScript is sometimes okay at finding them, but I have mixed results with TypeScript. So,
got it.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So you could say tracked, current count, or whatever we want to call it.
And is it just like that?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to be completely honest. This style of like class-based JavaScript has continued to move, and I have paid zero attention to it. So I'm like so at sea when we get into these. Like I don't even know what is this.
So that's a decorator. Decorators have changed a lot. I'm not sure if it's actually fully shipped as like a this is exactly what it's going to be yet thing, but with the magic of Babel, you can use them. And Ember's kind of on the legacy decorators syntax, which so is Angular, I think. So like we're all kind of stuck on this format. So I don't know why the like format that's actually getting into the spec is not this format when we're like the only ones using it. But anyway, a decorator is a way to like add extra functionality to a thing. So like behind the scenes, some functions run on that property that do magic. I don't know how to implement a decorator. I just know how to use them. So I don't know like what that exactly looks like. But this is basically telling some magic behind the scenes, hey, this property is going to change. So whenever it does change, swap that. Oh, okay. Nullvox is on here. He's going to make me look stupid. He's the one that like writes most of this stuff. Anyway, so this will tell it will update when you update it, so that when you're using it in a template, it knows, okay, I should re-render that little part using that variable.
Awesome. Okay, so this is basically the Ember equivalent of doing a create signal in Solid, or a use state in React, or a whatever, insert your state management solution.
Yep.
If you want it to update when the value changes, you do it like this in Ember.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So now that we have this value, if I want to update it, do I have to use, is there like a getter setter thing? Is there like a specific convention, or can I just say like whatever the hell I want and make it into a method?
Yeah, whatever you want, and you can there's no magic with this where you have to do like .current or .value, or like it's not like a mysterious thing that you have to find the guts of it to set a value. You're just like current count, plus like that.
That works. Okay. Mm-hmm. Did you see it? Look, everyone, I remembered that in an object or in a class you have to use this dot. Professional. All right. So then if I want to actually use this, do I have to do anything in here, or can I come out here and start adding stuff?
You come in here, and the next thing we'll touch on is called modifiers. So modifiers are little things you can put on your elements and like call functions and stuff. So specifically here, we're going to be using the on modifier, which is going to set up like an on click. And we can say like a on click, call this increment basically.
Okay, so let's dive in to here, and I want an on click, and what's the syntax for that?
So you do curly brackets, double curly brackets, and then you say just the word on, and then space, quotes, click. So on is the modifier, click is what we're saying the event is, we're passing it in, and then you give it whatever function you want to call. So this would be this dot increment, not in quotes.
Not in quotes, okay. Okay, and so that will increment the count, but we're not displaying the count yet. So is it like this dot count here?
I think we called it current count, but yeah.
Oh, you're right. You're right. We did. And is it in double curlies like that?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So theoretically speaking, with the way that we have structured this, when I bring up...
Well, we haven't dropped the component on the page yet, so we do need to do
right,
that.
Of course. Why would I? All right. So now I need the counter. And for me to do that, I would expect that it works something like this, and I just need to import that, or is there more to it?
It works like that, and you don't need to import it currently. In the new GTS world, everything is strict, and you will have to import it, which unlocks a lot of like nice tree shaking and stuff. But for now, Ember is just kind of magic and just finds the component.
Did I break it, or did I forget something?
I have an idea why it might not be working. Yeah, that this context is not bound. So if you go back to your component counter TS, we're going to need to import an action decorator. And that's in at Ember/object is where it's imported from.
Action from Ember object.
Yeah, Ember/object.
Like that? That's not right.
Yeah, add Ember/object. Yep.
Why are you yelling at me? Oh, it's just because we haven't used
Because there's no semicolon, maybe?
And then do I do like this?
Yes. And so this is just, the reason it's called action is Ember used to have this thing called actions, and you gave it a string of the function name, and it would look it up on like an actions hash and call it. So that's just kind of a leftover from that nomenclature, but it's essentially just binding this to the correct this. So now it should work if you save that, I think.
So, trivia. With a decorator, I have seen them done like this, but you did it like this. I assume it doesn't matter.
It does not matter. I tend to like to, for tracked properties, keep them all on one line like that. And then for functions, I put it above the function, especially because my function might get pretty long if I have a lot of params and I'm giving them types and whatever. Like if it gets super long, I put the decorator on the line before it.
Look at us go. Okay. And then Nullvox just said that you can use an arrow.
Yeah. Yeah. So you could.
What does that mean?
Use an arrow function, like the fat arrow, which will bind to this context.
If I did it like this instead, it wouldn't be.
Yep.
Then we wouldn't need the action and it would just work?
Correct. Yes.
Oh, look at that. Okay. So options then. You can do it several different ways. I kind of like not having to import things. That's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Nullvox has a lot of new, nice ways to do everything. I tend to be more old school. But yeah, you can do either.
I like it. I like it. This is great. I mean, I love that. So, okay. So we have a pretty clear syntax here for, we want a value that gets tracked. We have a way to change that value. We don't have to do anything to get Ember to update whenever that value changes. It just works. What else? What should we dig into next?
Oh, I don't know. I should have had an idea of something to build. Nullvox, what should we build? Yeah, I don't know. I think passing in some sort of arg is helpful to play with. Maybe doing some more with model hooks to like actually load data from somewhere. I just don't know. Like, I don't know what to.
Well, let's see. You had mentioned backend stuff, right? And so we have, if we need it, let's see, an adapter for XyFlow, XY flow. So if we need it, I have my API here, and we can pull in like episodes of Learn with Jason.
Okay.
And so this would give us the ability to like, we could render some pages, we could make a list, we could we can at least show how to do like an async data fetching call. And and this will give us a decent amount of stuff that we can mess with. Like we could also make a component to display an episode and then pass all of this data in from a parent component or from a page.
I think that sounds great. List of episodes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So let me see if I
do
can
that.
let me see if I can do this. So out here I say Ember G route and we'll say episodes. Do I need any flags?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to create a route. And then we're going to also create a component. And that component is going to be called episode. And we're going to do do I need the GC for this one? Well, we need arguments, right? So yes.
Well, yeah. Yes. In the current world, yes. You need it just to define your TypeScript stuff. There's a special template only component you can import. I don't really know how much performance gains you get from like not having that back in class, quote unquote, but I tend to just have them anyway.
Okay. So then in here, let's maximize this again. If I want to see, so I guess, so the to-dos are 1, we need to load the data. 2, we need to iterate over that and put the episode data into our episode component. And then, so I guess that means that like 1.5 is to create an episode component that can accept arguments.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And we can either just use like fetch and, throw data around, or we can try to go Ember data style. I'm not sure if we have enough time for that, but you could make like an episode model with all the fields an episode might have, and then like throw that thing around.
What if we do a simplified model? Like we can just get the title and the poster.
Okay. Yeah. So I think
That way we can show the Ember data model, but we don't get like way into the
Sure.
weeds.
Okay. Yeah. So you can Ember G model as well, I think. So you
Okay.
model episode, I guess.
So yeah, what's the convention here? Is it singular or plural?
That's a great question. I think it's singular. It does a lot of like magic pluralization and like kebabifying words. Like you can basically throw lots of random stuff at it, and it just kind of works.
Kebabifying. I like it. Okay. So I've got my model here, and then are the data fields that we want, like, are we doing a method called like generate schema, or do we just like throw the fields on that we want?
You put them on. So there's another decorator. Everything is decorator based. So there's adder is the decorator.
Adder, like that.
ATTR, like attribute, but like not the full word.
Attribute. Got it.
And then that you do parentheses, and you can pass different types to it. So like this is kind of normalizing data. So if you give it a string, all of the types are strings, and it's like either string, Boolean, date. I don't know. It's like, yeah. Oh, there they are. Okay.
Go.
Yeah. So that just like, if you're not sure, like a thing from the back end might be a string, but you actually want it to be a number when you're using it, you could give it a number and it'll like, massage that for you before you use it. That's what this is for.
Got it. Okay. So that gives us our title, and then we've got a poster URL. Feels pretty good. So then what happens?
So then you need to set up a couple of things. You need like an application. I think adapter is the one we want.
Okay.
I'm going to have to figure out how we do that.
And if you want to drop
see.
that link in here, we can poke at that and also show that cool feature. Watch, no hands from me.
Yeah. I don't have the exact link per se, but I'm going to give you like the Ember data intro page, and just to see how this pasting links thing works.
To see how long I have to stand here until we get. Look, did you see that? That's dope. I love that. Okay, so we have our model. We get our model here. We've done this part. We got our attributes. Oh, this is cool. So you can do actual relationships like that.
And they're by default For better or worse, they are asynchronous, so you can just, call whatever this thing is here, order.line items in your template, and it will like magic find them, and then when they're resolved, it will let you use them in your template. So you don't have to like await everything, which is nice from a like hand wavy, you get to kind of just build stuff perspective, but it's also annoying when you don't know what's happening. So like the pros and cons of magic.
Right. I mean, this is super slick, actually. So I like this. So you said we needed an adapter.
I think the adapter is what we want, and that basically lets you put in like your host and your like forgetting all the words, like defining where your API is, what it looks like, kind of stuff. So that then when you say like find episodes, it's like, oh, I know to go to like learn with Jason/episodes or whatever.
Right. Okay. So we've got this bit. Let's find. Where's our adapter?
Yeah, where's adapter?
Not in here. Finding records.
I also wonder what it'll give us from the generator. Like if we do Ember.js adapter application, just to see what we get.
Yeah, I like running unknown CLI commands. Adapter. What was it called?
Application. So anything that you want to apply across the board is called application, like that root application template. You can have an application model, or not model, route, like route file to do like things that are application wide. Anyway.
Okay, so we've got.
Oh, not super helpful. Okay. So by default, it does default to JSON API as the format. I'm assuming that's not what you're using.
It does what?
It defaults to JSON API as the format. So it's importing this. Where's my clicky thing? Oh, I'm not on the clicky boy. Here we go. All right. I was looking at StreamYard trying to highlight stuff. And I was like, this isn't working. All right. Yeah. So it imports the JSON API adapter. You don't actually even need this if your backend is like fully JSON API compliant, which most people's aren't. There's always like edge cases. So this kind of massages some things for you. Assuming yours is not at all, there are also like a REST adapter and just like a general adapter and stuff as well.
Yeah, mine is definitely, we'll call it bespoke.
Okay. I'm assuming the REST adapter is probably what we want then.
Okay.
And I think it's where you would expect like adapter/REST. I don't know. Let's see if we can see if that happens to be right. Yeah.
Like that?
Yep.
REST
Yeah, so we'll start there.
Okay.
And then how smart is autocomplete here? Like if we type host, is it like, I know what host is, I think.
Wait, what
So
is, it says host
string.
can target other hosts by setting the host property. Thanks.
Helpful. But I think this
But
is going to be like,
it is a string. So I do something like this. Like, is it?
yeah, I think this is like your root URL essentially. Like,
We're just gonna do this.
yeah. So I think it's
We're
just,
not gonna get fancy.
well, it may or may not work with that, but like I think what you want is just learn with JSON, and then you're probably gonna need a .com, I'm guessing,
Oh right, yeah, one of those. .dev.
or whatever.
Okay,
Yeah.
so just this.
And then you want to say like, I think namespace is the next thing, and that'll be like API v2.
Okay.
And then you don't need episodes because that's inferred from the model name. So it will pluralize that singular episode and find episodes as the endpoint when you go like find all
Interesting.
episodes.
Okay, so we've got this, and then we go back into our model. Are we done in here? Do we need to do more?
I think we're done. Well, we may have to come back, but we'll start with this. And then I think the model is more or less good to go.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. And then we go into like your whatever route you want to load episodes on. We need a route
We wanted
file.
the episodes route.
Yep. And so in your model hook, well, no, before we get in the model hook, you need, there's another concept. We're just throwing all the concepts at you, but there's services in Ember.
Okay.
And you need to inject them. So we'll have to import inject from like, I think it's like add Ember /service, maybe.
Autocomplete to the rescue. Okay.
And I usually do inject as service. That's like the convention in Ember for whatever reason, like changing the
What does that mean?
in the import, changing the name to service, like inject as service.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
And then you'll do at service and store. And that's our Ember data store.
And
So that's all you need
is
for that.
Coming from something?
It comes from Ember data. I guess we should check. I think Ember data is still installed by default, but we should probably check before we assume it's there. So let's look in package.json and see if
Implicitly has an any type is what it's mad about.
yeah. So you'll have to give it all the types. So we can do that while we're here. If you want to say declare store to say like this is coming magically from somewhere.
So like here.
No, in front of store. Like, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing again. I keep pulling up this because I want to see your face. But here we go. Putting declare here in front of store, just kind of, I think that tells TypeScript like this is coming magically from somewhere. And then you give it a colon, and we're going to give it, the type is just capital store, and it comes from, if it doesn't auto find where that is, it's from at Ember/data or Ember-data/store, I think.
Okay.
Let's see if that
import, and that's a type. So we're gonna say type
import type
store from Ember/data.
I think it's Ember-data/store. I'm not positive. We also need to make sure we have installed Ember data. That could be why it doesn't know.
Has no exported member. Oh, is it top level?
Yes, because we're already at /store. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So does it give you something if you look at that now? Let's see.
I mean, it says the store contains all the data for the records. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, all right. Things are happening.
So then you'll need a model hook, the just model method again.
Wait, I've completely forgotten did we do this already?
Yeah, we did it just to show the string, like we had a greeting string that we were accessing from a template.
1000% that has exited my memory. Let me look we'll look in here. I understand. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
So then we got this, and then we're going to return something.
Yeah, you want to return this .store dot. If we want to get all the episodes, you do find all episode. Or it might be plural. I'm not sure. We'll try this.
No, I mean the autocomplete gave me episodes, so we're gonna roll on that.
Nice. Yeah, TypeScript is really helpful.
So, okay, so there's a lot of magic happening, which takes me a second to get my head around. But this is actually pretty sick because we have our model, and we're saying that our episodes are going to return this, and I'm going to make an assumption that under the hood you will dump the response from the API, and you'll be looking for things that match.
Yep.
Okay, then I'm going to change this because this should be slug then. And then we have our adapter. Our adapter is saying that whenever you get a request, send it here. And then you know how to build a URL based on like what the model is that I'm saying. And because it's the application adapter, it's used for everything. We could create sub-adapters, I assume.
Yes, you can do an adapter per model if you wanted.
Got it. Okay, so then this is connected here, and then we get into our route. And our route is saying we want to use the store, and then we want to get the result of find all episode, which connects to that adapter and puts it into the store.
Yep.
Sick. Okay, so then to actually use this, we have our episodes route, and we have our episodes template. So at this point, I don't think we need the outlet, right?
Nope.
So instead, what we want to do is loop over our episodes, which I'm assuming, I don't remember how handlebars work, but it's going to be like for each, episode in episodes or episodes.map or something like that. And then we want to call our episode component, which is up here, that we have not declared yet because we need to get the arguments in.
Right. Yeah. So to start, we could
first?
probably just spit out like was title one of the fields we put on the model?
Yeah.
We could just show like episode.title just to see if it's working.
Okay.
So for this, to do an each, you do curly brackets. I never know the name pound, I guess. I always want to call it hashtag, but it's not. Like, what do people call that? Anyway, each this dot model space as, and then I don't know what to call these either, like the pipe. Episode. So you're saying like, give me this big list of episodes you found, call each one an episode, and then a closing pipe.
Okay.
And then you'll need a closing each after the yep.
Like that.
Yeah, and then inside of there you could just do more curly brackets, like this dot model dot, or this dot episode, or whatever. Sorry, no, this is.
Wait.
You got it right. You're good.
Okay.
Sorry,
okay.
I'm just saying it wrong, but this looks correct. Yeah.
Okay, so this is in our template, so I shouldn't have to. Or let's see, we've got this one. Let me.
Yeah, so you should be able to navigate
this
to
link over
slash
here before I
episodes.
forget about it, and then I'm going to open up here. We're gonna navigate to slash episodes. And is my API slow or did it break? Response must be normalized to a valid JSON API document. Oh no. Okay, so we've got chaos that I'm not providing.
I know why. You also need a default application serializer, because if you don't provide one, it thinks it's all JSON API. So we need to do Ember.js serializer application. And then whenever that comes up, you want to do the same thing we did before, change it from JSON API to REST.
Okay. Got it.
And then I don't think we need to do anything in there. It might just work. It might be happy.
Work. It's not yelling anymore. Encountered. But no model was found for the model name 385. Oh, okay. So this is me.
So we may need some extra serializer magic.
Yeah, because I think it might be dumping like indices.
Yeah, can you see what API calls we're making in the network? Like, what is the format of the first? Are we hitting the right place? And then if we are, we can see what we can change in the serializer.
Let's see. We've got episodes is hitting. There's our fetch call. So this gives us back an array. Is it breaking that array into 3 chunks? That's probably just that's just the console, right? Like,
yeah, I think so.
So then we
so
should
maybe REST is actually too much. Like, I think there's just a generic serializer that is maybe what we want.
Okay. Let's see. So out here, no. Where's our serializer? Here.
Oh, there's a JSON one?
Should we just try the JSON?
Sure. We'll just try everything. Yeah. I haven't worked on the new application in so long. I couldn't tell you how to configure all this. We'll figure it out though.
Okay, so
if Nullbox is still there and he knows the answer, you can tell us real quick. But
did it hit my endpoint? There's the call.
Seems to have fetched it. Yeah.
Hey, that's right.
There
So
you
that's
go.
just my API is not always the fastest.
Well, we're also doing an unbounded. Just give me all of them. Like
That's true. We're loading like literally every episode, and I think this call might return transcripts as well. So it's like a giant amount of data. But look, it works.
yeah.
Okay, so we've got that, and then now what I want to do in our remaining, how much time we got? We got like 20 minutes. We're in great shape. So let's get a component.
Yeah.
Running with our stuff here. So we have, let me just, you know what? We're going to close all that. We're going to open up this, and I'm going to get our component episode. And so our to-do list here is we have a title and a slug, and then I can use the slug to build a poster URL. So we need to accept those and then do a little bit of work in the component or in here to transform that slug into a URL.
Yeah. Yep. Sounds good. So yeah, in our args there, we'll have, I guess we're just passing, like this is kind of maybe more cheating than anything else, but you could just say episode and give it an episode model as the type. And then you don't have to do everything else.
If I can spell it right.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's probably an export defaulted episode, so it maybe isn't finding the name, but if you import it from like / models or whatever, should find it.
Models episode.
Should be not JavaScript. It's TS.
What if I just get rid of your? Cannot find a declaration file.
Maybe because we have to like run a type check, and it hasn't, so it hasn't generated those yet. I'm not sure.
Oh, you know what? I don't have this.
Oh, it's not TypeScript. Well, that's why.
Call it TypeScript, and then maybe that'll fix it.
Yeah, then you have to give it types, though. So just give that a string as well.
What are you mad about? No initializer, and is not definitely assigned.
Just give them declares. Declares are used everywhere in Ember because everything is magically loaded from somewhere. No S.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Got it. Okay.
So now it should know what that is, hopefully.
You are grumpy because like that.
Maybe try.
I needed to kick it a little bit. But now we're in good shape. So we've got our episode model. All right.
Yep.
So then where does one do the transformation? Like when I want to take the slug and turn it into a poster URL?
Yeah, that's it depends. So a lot of people like to do a lot of that directly in the template. I tend to prefer to keep my templates clean, and I would make like just a native getter in the class that would be like poster URL and build it there.
Okay. So if I do something like this.
So I would do make it a getter, like with get in front of it and like a method, not the arrow function. No, sorry. Like get space and then poster URL.
Is that like a class thing that I don't know?
Yes. Sorry. I forget that nobody really uses classes, but yeah, classes, you can have a native getter. And so this is basically like a property. So if you access like this.poster URL, it will just, return that as like a string or whatever you returned. You don't have to like call it as a function.
Got it.
And so this is useful for like composing tracked things. So if you have like a bunch of tracked properties and you want to have this is like would have had to have been a computed property back in the day because you would have needed
Right.
everything to trigger it computing. But this is now just like, it's just like a built-in class thing.
That's dope. Okay. So
Yeah.
so then I've got this gives me a poster URL, which takes the slug and turns it into a thing. I auto completed my way to victory there, and that's correct. That's the right way to do it.
That looks right. Yeah.
Excellent. So then, if I open up my episode, I should then theoretically be able to do something like this, and we'll take, I don't know, we'll do an image, give it a source of, is it this dot poster URL?
I think so.
Okay. And we'll give it an alt of this dot title. And let's give it a width of 300. And we'll let the height auto on that.
I think your alt needs to be this dot, or it's like from the episode, right? So
You're right.
this is something that is a little different here. Instead of whenever you pass something in and it's not a property on the class, you use at instead of this. So we would say at episode dot title. Yeah, like that.
Okay. So then we can just put in go with one of these and at episode title.
Mm-hmm.
And then theoretically that works. So then if I go back to my routes, back to my templates here, then we should be able to change this out to be episode. And then I do episode equals episode, or can I just drop it in straight up?
Yeah, it's like that, but you put an at in front of the first episode. Yep. So anytime it's an arg, you do at, and if it's an attribute, you don't. So that's how you can differentiate, like, you know, class being a normal HTML thing versus stuff you're passing.
Look at us go.
Nice.
I mean, this is great. Like, this is exactly what we wanted, right? It does exactly what we're after. We get our list of episodes. We've got our data coming in, and you know, it takes a little bit of figuring out what the conventions are, but the actual mechanics of this are really straightforward. Like, we have a way to, let me just walk back through and make sure I understand everything that happened. So we have a way to turn data, like when data comes in, we serialize it, and because we have my chaos JSON instead of a spec, we use the generalized JSON serializer. We've got a adapter, which tells Ember where to go look for data, which in this case is my API. Then we have our routes down here, and here's our router, which is saying, like, for these, you know, slash whatever, hook up a route, which is already, okay, great. Then we've got our routes themselves. And this, when you call this route, is going to call the episode's endpoint of my API, because it's got magic pluralization, which is a little confusing, but very cool. And then it also encourages me to have much better API hygiene than I do, because I'm assuming I would actually get bit by this later when I go to find one episode and it's like, doesn't find one episode. It's going to try to,
Yeah.
Anyways.
I was going to
So
say we could try that. We could make a episode route and then like if we,
how much pain do you want to feel in,
yeah. How do you differentiate? Are they just slug based? Do they have IDs or numbers?
Let me see. I think the way I do it is I do API v2 episodes, and then you just throw in, wait. Oh, maybe I do it. Maybe I do it right, actually. So it goes to singular. So that probably would work, actually. And then you throw in a slug.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if we can successfully do it, but I'm down to try. We have a little bit of time left, so
Yeah, let's. You know what? We were gonna go out on a win, but let's make sure that we like grind across the finish line on our faces.
yeah.
All right, let's roll. Let's roll. Here we
right.
go.
Yeah, so I think maybe what I would do is Ember.js route episodes/episode. Episodes plural /episode. So like you're looking at the list of episodes and then you want to drill down. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Okay.
And then
So we end up
in
with
our
episode/episode.
and then in our router, you'll have to give it like tell it what that ID is going to be. So it'll need to have so you put a comma here after episode, or no, you don't. I'm wrong. You put your ID here, so it'd be like instead of episode, I'm thinking the URL will be like episodes/slug. So this will be like colon episode or
wait,
slug.
wouldn't it be like that?
Well, I'm thinking that it would be just episodes/slug without the word episode again. So I would make it just colon slug, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
And all right. So hold on. You were right. Because now I think this has to be episodes/slug. I don't know. I need to look this up.
You know what? Why would we look at the docs, Robbie, when we can just run it and find out what happens?
You're right.
Okay, so we've got one of these. So maybe what we can try just to immediately get us out the gate is let's just have it show the current slug, and that'll let us know if our routing works. So in here, I would want to show what do I do? Do I just do? Can I show the route like?
Yes. So it's not just, you can't just do it in this. We'll need a controller for this page.
Okay.
So we'll have to do Ember.js controller episodes/episode. And then inside that controller, we'll have to inject the router service. So it'll be similar to how we did the store service. You'll import inject as service and then do @service router.
And service here is different from inject as service.
Yes, I think they both come from service, but like if you're defining a service of your own, that's the one it's trying to autocomplete you to there.
Remind me what this was, Ember /
I think it's /service, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, that's right. It just wasn't auto-completing the way I thought. So store or declare store.
No, this one will be router.
Oh, router.
And I wouldn't worry about trying to find the type unless it just happens to have it. Oh, it does have it. Ember routing router. Okay.
Okay.
Actually, that might not even be the type, but I think it'll still work. So if you go into the template, I think it's like a router service is the like slightly different, but I think they have the same properties. So I'm not too worried about it.
Whatever, right?
Yeah.
Who cares?
So if you go into the episode HBS, we have so many things named episode. Where are we at? Templates/episodes/episode. So and then do this .router dot something that I will find. Let's see.
Params, maybe?
It's possible. Is it auto completing to that? Or does it auto? No, it doesn't auto complete because we don't have Glint, the Glint extension installed. Let me see. Properties, current route name, current URL. It might be, current route. Yeah, this .router .current route .params, I think.
Like that?
Yes.
Okay. So let's give this a shot, and I'm going to episodes/ test slug. And it says episodes slug is not a valid route name. It cannot contain a thingy.
All right, yeah, let me look
May
at
want
how
to
you
use the
define a
path
route.
option instead.
Okay, that's probably what we meant then. Yeah, maybe the name is still episode, and then you give it a path of just colon slug. So yeah, I'd make that just episode singular. Yeah, and then comma, and then curly brackets object, and give it
Oh, you can just toss one of these
path.
Path.
Yeah, let me try to.
Like
I'm trying to find the actual docs because I'm not sure, but we can also just keep trying stuff, I guess.
Unrecognized.
Oh, it should be just slug, no episode / for the path.
Okay, so that hits here. Does this need to be like episode?
No, because it's already nested under episodes.
Okay, so it's hitting. It's hitting like it's not hitting that at all.
Yeah, it's possible this path needs to be episodes / slug. I'm not sure. I thought it didn't. No. Yeah, so I think it's right. Let me try to find actual docs on this.
And I don't want to put undue pressure on you, but we have 3 minutes left.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's so hard to find the right docs because there's so many versions of Ember and it's so old.
Linda has a bet, and I'm gonna take up that bet. It's here.
Find it.
And Linda is wrong.
Where is this? Yeah, no, it should be. Maybe it's just /. Maybe we need / colon slug.
No, that's not it.
And why is it rendering all this other stuff?
It's like whatever we're doing is causing this to just ignore all the way back up.
It shouldn't do that without resetting namespace. Yeah, we can be explicit about it. If you give it episode singular / slug, and then go to, I think you need the first /, and then let's just put in episodes / episode / test slug just to make it happy.
Nah, it's like doing a full ignore.
I think it's just rendering the wrong template. Like, do we have an outlet in something? Like, do
we have an outlet? That is a great question. Let us see. Template episodes. There's no outlet in this one.
Yes, we need an outlet, and we need to. So it's rendering this because it's like this is the upper content. So.
Oh, okay. So
let's
just stick this up at the top.
Sure. Yeah, just for now.
Oh, it's been working.
So yeah, so I think it was working before. Yeah.
Okay, let's test actually if it's. Was it working before? And we get rid of this, and then it does the thing. It does. It does. Okay.
Yeah.
So everything was fine, and we got it. Okay. So that actually brings up a question then, which is how do you do the nesting like this without this?
Yeah, we probably should not have nested it. That was probably my bad. We should have probably just called it. Like you can do, if you go to the router, I know we only, like we're out of time, but if in the router, instead of nesting them like this, you could say like bring that episode part out to be like a sibling of episodes and then make the path / episodes / slug. You know what I mean? So it's like not a child anymore, but the path to the
Got it.
user appears like a child. So that's how
Got it.
you would
And so
fix
we'd have to rearrange a lot of these
Yeah,
files to make that
yeah.
work.
We
Which
don't have time for that,
Do
but
not
that's
have
how you-
time for, but
Yeah.
that would work.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So yeah, I mean, now we've got, like, despite the fact that we did exactly what I thought we would do, which is try to squeeze a little bit too much in at the last second
Yeah.
and get ourselves into a corner. But we did get it working, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
And this is, I feel like it's pretty obvious that we barely scratched the surface here. But the fact that I already kind of have a sense of how things move through this, and that there's a very clear structure for, like, your templates go here, your components go here, your models go here, and you know exactly where to look to find certain types of data. I can see why this has such longevity, and I can see why big companies would reach for Ember. Because if you need to onboard somebody new, if they've ever worked with Ember before, they're not walking into something they have to learn. They're just stepping into code that's familiar. So Robbie, where should somebody go if they wanna keep digging? Like, what else is?
Yeah, I would go through the actual tutorial that we didn't do. It has a
that
lot
we
of
opened
stuff.
and then didn't do anything with?
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what all it would have, and it's more fun to just kind of
Why
fly
not,
by the
right?
seat of your pants. But yeah, I would have them go through this, poke around the docs, be aware that a lot of stuff changed throughout the years. So if you're trying to Google stuff, it's probably not going to be the best.
Make sure
But
you're in
this
the
is-
right version of the documentation.
Yes. Yeah. The docs are good. There's a lot of new stuff coming out, I would say, within the next couple of months. Like Vite is supposed to be the default. We'll see if that lands as they think it will. But there's a lot of cool stuff happening to where, like, this will be even simpler, even more familiar to people that aren't familiar with Ember and are more used to, like, a single file component in Vue or whatever. There's new stuff coming with Starbeam and resources and things like that, which are a little bit hooksy, which I don't love, but a lot of people do love that. So, like, it's definitely not as old and clunky, and like you shouldn't just forget about it. It's got a lot of powerful stuff that you could really use today. There's a few tutorials that are kept up to date. There's Rock and Roll with Ember.js by Balance. I forget his last name. But he keeps that pretty up to date.
Rock and Roll with Ember.
Yeah. Yep.
Is the Gumroad.
Yes, that's the one. So yeah, that, and yeah, I don't know. I haven't had to, like, give resources to people in a while. Check out the
I'll
Discord.
tell you what. Here's what I'm going to do: is I'm going to give everybody your Twitter so that once they've run out of resources, they can come and find you, and
Yes.
and ask you for more information. And then, in addition to that, this episode, like every episode, has been live captioned. That we've had Amanda here with us from White Coat Captioning doing the live captioning. Thank you very much. That is made possible through the support of our sponsor, Netlify. Thank you very much, Netlify. And we've also been using Tuple for the pair programming. So you saw Robbie drawn on the screen. Robbie, you've also got up in the top right there some celebratory stuff that you can do if you want to maybe do a quick
I do?
quick reaction.
Okay.
Right? Just little fun stuff that we can do together as we. Where was that when we were?
Yeah, I didn't know that was there. That's great.
So anyway, so Tuple has been sponsoring the show and the pair programming on it. It's great. If you want to try it out, click the link down here and you can try it out yourself. Let them know I sent you. Robbie, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really appreciate it. While you're on the site, everybody, make sure you go and check the schedule because we've got all sorts of good stuff coming up. We are next week going to learn about how to put 3D on the web. This is going to be dope. If you haven't seen the stuff that Sarah's working on, it is incredible. Really excited about it. Can't wait to learn. Then we've got Ryan Carniatos coming in. We're going to learn about Solid Start, which is the meta framework for Solid.js. It's similar to a SvelteKit or a Next or whatever, name your Nuxt. Then we're going to do the makeup episode with Matt Pocock and Generics, and there's even more coming that I haven't put up on the site yet, so keep your we got our dates wrong. We'll fix that. Don't worry, everybody. We're going to get this is all going to be okay. So, Robbie, thank you so much for hanging out. Chat, as always, thank you so much for hanging out. We are going to call this one a resounding success. And thank you all for hanging out. We will see you next time.